Thank you for tuning into the lineup. I'm Joshua Adams, and that swell guy right there is Jeff Matthews. As always, we'll get started with Jeff and the latest with the Austin Peay Lady Govs.
So the Lady Govs ended their last season with a phenomenal season. They started off a little rough, losing most of their games right out the gate, but they ended up having, like I said, one of their best seasons. Their ending record was 39-17. They were second in the conference. However, at the end of that season, the head coach did decide to leave, and he went to a different school, which brings in a new coach. Now, going into this upcoming season, it's definitely going to raise questions as if the team is going to stay together or if it's just going to be a rough transition with a new coach. My personal opinion is I've seen these girls work together, and I have no doubt that this is going to be a season that they can overcome this new coach situation, and it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, they got off to what was one of their worst starts of all time, correct?
Correct.
And then it became a better season in recent memory.
It did, and they've worked very hard from then, and so now it's going to be exciting to see next season.
I mean, showing the resilience to turn around a season like that, it always shows the character of a team, and it helps you look forward to the next season. As far as baseball goes, they ended the year 30-27, 17-13 in the conference, which got them fifth in the conference and into the end of the season tournament. They were knocked out pretty early by Eastern Kentucky, though. Star pitcher Jacques Pouchot reached 100 Ks on the season, which is very impressive considering,
very impressive.
I mean, 57 games. I mean, that's starting, once a week or so. That's really impressive. He went to the Cape Cod League and had a 1.5 ERA, which that is not an easy league to play in. You go there to prove yourself. You go there to say, I'm a good college pitcher and I'm worth drafting. That's one of the places you go.
Correct.
And he succeeded there. So that's really impressive. The big guy at the plate, Parker Phillips, ended the year with a .330 batting average, .420 on base, and a .709 slugging percentage. And that's a lot. That's a lot. For those of you who don't know, a .709 slugging percentage is equivalent to getting .7 bases per at bat. So that means he's getting a lot of extra base hits, a lot of home runs. And he actually took part in the college home run derby this season. I don't believe he got very far in it, but he did well enough to be noticed by the college world. So that's great.
That is great. And overall, it seemed that the Austin Peay Governors baseball team has just always been well-rounded in at the plate. Like they just always seem to be pretty good at batting. The
most famous Austin Peay Gov that I know of in the major leagues was actually Clayton Kershaw's personal catcher for a long time. So that's really A.J. Ellis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think he's on the Padres right now. But every time the Cubs face him or I see him on a nationally broadcast game, I'm like, oh, hey, I go to that school. If you or someone you know wants more of the latest Austin Peay sports news, then be sure to tune in next Tuesday morning at 10 for the first episode of Govs on the Go. Our good friend Christian Christensen is producing this new show devoted exclusively to Austin Peay sports news. I'll be involved in the production as well. A few weeks ago, the Little League World Series wrapped up. I have a lot to say about it before I kind of go on that tangent.
Right.
What do you think about it?
I think there's definitely two sides to everything. With the Little League World Series, I really do believe that it gives these children a chance to obtain some national recognition, international recognition. So for the most part, I think it's more of an experience learning situation with the Little League World Series.
Yes.
I
Character building.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's more so about like being great at the game. I think these kids are very talented, do not get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no, they are.
But there's some things about it that don't necessarily equal great play, if that makes sense.
So are you ready for this? I'm going to
Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and wait. It's going to be a few minutes.
I think the field is way too small. 215 feet is ridiculous. These kids are hitting home runs like 100 feet past this fence, and then the announcers go and saying like, "Oh my word, it went beyond the berm. It's on the walkway," and stuff like that. I mean, and it's always some kid who hit puberty at 8, and he's like 6'2", 240 or something like that. and he's just flicking his wrist and knocking it out. It's always dominated by these huge kids and that are basically high schoolers. I'm 6'2". Like, I mean, if I were there, I mean, I'm so long, I could just knock any pitch those kids threw out. It's just the field is too small. I think they really need to be playing on a bigger field.
And I agree with that. That's why, with my point, like, there's some things that this league doesn't do well for these kids, and it puts them on a small field, and it doesn't necessarily get to showcase their actual talent. I think that it downgrades like things that they've actually accomplished when you put them on that small field.
It does and it doesn't. I know of 3 major leaguers that actually took place in the Little League World Series in somewhat of a tangent, but these parents are like, this kid has the fast track to the major leagues. He's going to be signed by the New York Yankees today. But Cody Bellinger,
Yep.
Todd Frazier, and
Yep.
Jonathan Scope. There are probably more that I don't know of, but those are the 3 that I know of. 3.
3.
I mean, Ben Zobrist of now the Cubs, mostly he was famous for being on the Rays. He expected to be done with baseball after it was either high school or community college. I know he played in community college. I think he thought he played his last game after community college, and now he's Ben Zobrist. He's a name.
Right.
So baseball, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
People develop differently with baseball than they do with other things. Over the course of the season, a number of players and celebrities got in trouble on Twitter due to offensive tweets coming out, due to offensive posts coming out, whether they posted them, with Roseanne, that kind of thing, but in the baseball world, what has happened is that tweets have come out from the past. Mm-hmm. So that's been a topic of discussion. Most prominently, Josh Hader's tweets took place about 7 years ago. So Jeff, admittedly, what he said was offensive.
Absolutely.
It was.
Absolutely.
And no one should say those things or have those opinions.
Right.
But it was 7 years ago. Should we really be punishing people for something they did 7 years ago? I mean, all of his African-American teammates came out and supported him, and we might have the video up. But it's just, I don't think it's right, because people were calling for him to be suspended, and I just don't agree with that.
When me and you were talking about this, I brought up maturity levels and how big of a difference of a maturity there is with as little as just 2 years, right? So 2 years is, you could say that could be a senior in high school and a freshman in college. You have that big of space, and you learn a lot through college, right? These tweets, they're coming out so long ago. I don't think it truly reflects who these players are and celebrities are now. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying I condone anything of what they said. Yes. Some of those were pretty bad.
Pretty brutal.
And the best thing I can think of is owning up to what you said, but then also as the fans of the sport and as people that are watching these stars and like your heroes see this happening, keep in mind that that might not be who they are. Like 7 years ago is a very long time.
Yeah, and you can still be a fan of the player. Like Serena Williams, right? She just threw that tantrum on the court. It was not a good look for any professional athlete in the slightest. But I still can appreciate that she's possibly the best female tennis player of all time.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And yes, the Serena Williams situation was give or take, and I think there's fault on both parties with that one. But point being is, you're right. These players, everybody makes mistakes. Like, don't dismiss a player immediately just because of something that's happened in the past.
Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking of things people are trying to get banned, just like Josh Hader, talk has picked up recently of removing the ability to shift from baseball, and personally I think it's ridiculous.
I think this show is a whole lot of things that we can agree on. Josh, the shift, you and I both know, the shift is something that I think is strategic, and it's a way to beat a runner. And I think it's a mindset game. you're letting that batter know, like, we've watched you. We know where you're going to put this ball,
hit it.
And you're not going to get it past us.
Yeah, it's not just left-handers that are affected. Obviously, I'm a Cubs fan. If you've watched the show at any point, you know that I'm a Cubs fan. Chris Bryant, he hits ground balls to the left side 70% of the time. I mean, when he hits a ground ball, it's to the left side 70% of the time. And you're going to tell me not to put 3 of my fielders over there? That's restricting me from being the best team I can be. People compare it to illegal formations in football, but it's not the same. You know the numbers for the positions. 1 is pitcher, 2 is catcher, 3 is first, 4 is second, 5 is third. They skipped over shortstop because originally it was a rover position.
Right.
Third base was just in between second and third. It was a rover position that went everywhere, wherever they knew that they were going to hit the ball. You can't take that away. That's been there since the beginning.
Right. It's definitely frustrating, and you brought up your Cubs, so I'll go ahead and bring up the Braves. Freddie Freeman. I was watching the game yesterday. It was on Facebook, actually. And I've seen this about almost every game with Freddie Freeman that I've watched. He bats left-handed, and every team has decided to shift on him, no matter what. Every time shortstop comes over, plays right behind second base, and second base moves over to the left more towards first. As much as a Braves fan as I am, Freddie Freeman sometimes can't handle it. Sometimes Freddie Freeman messes up, and he a lot of times will hit ground balls straight to the second baseman. And I can't be mad about it. It's strategic. It works.
That's why the second baseman's there, because he hits the ball right there.
Exactly. And so I think you can't automatically take something out of a game just because people are getting frustrated.
Yeah, just because it makes it more difficult. Like if they invented somehow a better defense in basketball and people couldn't score on it, all of a sudden LeBron James was only scoring 12 points a game. Well, if it was LeBron James, they would ban it. But it's not fair to the teams that came up with that.
Right.
It doesn't add up. We do not actually have time to talk about Acuna and Urania. We will discuss that at the end of the show. Jeff and I will spend more time on the shift next week, so you'll want to tune in for that. After the break, we are going to talk about the American League and the National League and how their seasons have played out. Join us after this.
Every year, we lose 400 people to carbon monoxide poisoning. 170 of these incidents are from non-automotive consumer products.
Poisoning can help to be prevented by installing a CO device in your home, having your appliances serviced by a qualified technician, even having your mechanic regularly touch up on your exhaust systems. Never have your vehicle running in a garage that is connected to a home, or have the garage door closed.
And that's it. Yeah. This is the lineup: Joshua Adams, Jeffrey Matthews. Before the current Major League season started, it seemed that it would play out pretty much as the 2017 season did. The rich would remain richer, and those that were trying to reach the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Nationals wouldn't really be able to catch up. And that's pretty much how it's played out in the American League. But as far as the National League goes, it has been much more contentious. In the American League, you have the Red Sox, who are 146. So, congratulations. Woo.
They've been doing good.
Mookie Betts is about to break 10 WAR. I think he'll be like only the 21st person ever to do that. It might be a little higher than that. Chris Sale, he's been Chris Sale.
Right.
He's already over 200 Ks, ERA under 2. I mean, what can you really say about him? The Red Sox they're loaded. You don't have much bad to say about them.
Right. They're just a good team, overall team. Like, when you play a good team, it's hard to be mad because you see how well they're playing. And I brought this up to you before this show. I really expected the Yankees to have a much closer time with the Red Sox than 10 games behind sitting now. Yeah. Like, I thought it was going to be a lot closer.
See, now 10 games behind sounds bad.
It sounds
They're 90
awful.
and 56.
True.
That if they lost every single game for the rest of the season, that's still not a bad season.
Oh,
That's
no,
still
you're
8
right.
games over 500.
Right.
I mean, as it stands now, they're a lot more than 8 games over 500 and 10 games out in their own division. The Orioles, continuing to look at the AL East, they're not really worth talking about, honestly.
No.
I mean, you know, we try to be fair and talk about each team individually, but at 41 and 104, you tell me what to talk about. Chris Davis has 178 Ks as a batter. His batting average is 174. And they're giving him regular at-bats. He has 448 at-bats. They're giving him regular at-bats with a batting average below the Mendoza line. That is not a winning strategy.
No. Something is not working in the Orioles, and it could be, we've talked about it before, it's a building season for the Orioles, so they might.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Nice way of putting it, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this year, at what point do you say, all right, we'll shoot for just the spots for the draft?
For the draft,
yeah. Tanking is what we've talked about that
We've talked
before.
about it multiple times.
Multiple times. And the Orioles, I don't know, like with a record of 41 and 104, I'm trying to decide at what point in your season did you decide to do that?
Significantly too late. They should have sold off much before this. They should have sold off maybe even like they should have sold off last year. They could have gotten more for Manny Machado than they did. I mean, the Dodgers got a steal.
They
at
really
the deadline. Essentially, if they didn't have to give up Walker Buehler, that means they got it for a good price. Got Manny Machado. He is a person. I mean, they have Alex Cobb, which, I mean, on a good team that would be a good 3 starter, but on the Orioles he's their best starter, and that's not great.
No.
The Rays have been. We're not even going to talk about the Blue Jays. I mean, the Blue Jays, what do you say? I mean, they had Josh Donaldson. They took way too long to trade him. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The Rays have actually really surprised this year. Blake Snell is a stud.
Yeah.
He has a 2.03 in 195 Ks. That's going to get him some Cy Young votes. And actually, former Sound Joey Wendell is second on the team in WAR with a 112 OPS plus. So he's not a slouch, as some people actually thought he projected he would be. So, I mean, that's pretty much for the AL East, because you have the Red Sox, they're good. The Yankees, they're good. The Rays would be a playoff team if they weren't in the East.
I was about to say, if they weren't in this division.
As far as the AL Central goes, there's not anything to talk about. The Indians are good. They could have been a lot better. It's actually, they only have 82 wins. They're 82 and 64 in one of the worst divisions of all time.
Yeah.
At least recent memory, that's not ideal. No. They should be well into 90 wins.
I think the caliber of the Cleveland Indians, you know, they went to the World Series not too long ago.
Yeah, 2016.
Right. So you can't, it was so short time ago, they should be, I think 82 should be way higher. And I think the Indians, I think they just had a rough season. I think they lost some chemistry.
Their bullpen has flattened.
Yes.
It is not great. Because Miller's been hurt. He's been up and down all year. They just, it's not ideal.
It's not
ideal. It's really
ideal.
not. Moving on to the AL West, the Astros have actually surprisingly not been as good as most people might think they'd be. They're 92 and 54, which is not bad.
No, it's not.
By no means is it bad. But the Athletics are only 3 games back, and that is huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Athletics, I feel like, have shown up to play.
They really have. Have you seen Blake Trinan pitch? It is unbelievable.
A few times.
It's like 102 and a sinker that moves this much. You can't hit that. You're swinging at something at the top of the zone, and then it hits you in the foot.
Yep. And I mean, that kind of pitching right there can win you ball games alone.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be interesting. I would keep a close eye on the AL West, because I think it's going to come down to a game.
Because you essentially have, and of competing teams in the AL, you have the Yankees, the Red Sox, you have the Indians, because no one else is competing in the Central. You have the A's, and you have the Astros. The Rays would be competing if the A's weren't so good. They would be competing for a wild card spot, but now they're forced to play spoiler.
Right.
It's just, I mean, could the average baseball fan name more than 2 players on the Athletics?
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, you have Laureano, who had that ridiculous throw.
Mm-hmm.
You have Trinan, you have Chapman, and I mean, you have Trevor Cahill now. but I mean, their pitching is what has gotten him here, because they have a lot of no-name pitchers that are really succeeding. Like the Cubs let Trevor Cahill go, or might have traded him. They either DFA'd or trade him. I don't exactly remember. And he's great for the A's right now. And Sean Manaea is down their ace for the year, and they're still competing. They still have 89 wins.
Right.
So we need to move on to the NL East, and that's more your forte than mine.
Oh, the NL East has been hectic.
It has.
I guess is the best way to put it. It's not so hectic now because, ladies and gentlemen, the Atlanta Braves are in the number 1 spot.
For now, I mean,
for now.
How far back are the Phillies?
It's 7.5.
7.5. Okay, I mean, that's pretty much locked up.
You'd think.
I mean, with what, like 19 games left on the season?
I do believe so.
Yeah,
around
19,
that.
20.
And the thing is, well, if anybody remembers my bracket, I put the Braves going into the wild card spot.
Yeah.
I thought the Phillies were going to be a lot better than what they were. They're at 74 wins. The Braves are at 82. 74 is still not bad. It's not awful.
Yeah.
But everyone predicted the Phillies to be in the 90s. They thought that, at least that's how I saw it. People thought the Phillies were going to come out and destroy the NL East.
Even with the Nationals.
Well, it was probably, most people probably thought it was going to be between those two. Everyone believed the Braves were not even going to be in the picture.
Yeah.
And now the Braves are almost the picture of the NL East.
Yeah.
The Braves have just been fun to watch for everybody. And that's not just me as the fan saying it. That's me as like an analyst talking about the Braves.
Yeah, I mean, Acuna with his home run streak, I mean, he's younger than us, isn't he?
I think he's 20.
Yeah.
So he's the same age as me.
Okay.
He came out of, I forgot if it was Ronald Acuna or Ozzie Albies that came out of the same town as Andrew Jones. But both of them have been some of the most exciting players to step on the diamond for the Braves. Since Andrew Jones and Chipper Jones. Like, I feel like there hasn't been many people that have been so exciting to watch than these two young guys. And I think that's what's changed the Braves completely for this whole entire season and put them at the number 1 spot. Like you were talking about Acuna's, I think it was 8-9 game streak for home runs each game, which was ridiculous, and which led to him getting hit by Urena. But that's not the point. But continuing on.
Actually, we need to take a break. We're
going to go to break.
Yeah, we stretched on the AL.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the AL has been interesting, as had the National League. The National League Central has been very contentious. The Cubs only have a 1-game lead. The Brewers have been great, and the Cardinals are surprising as well. And basically, just watch baseball. Just watch baseball. On the other side of the break, overreactions to the season at hand. Stick with us. Thank you once again for joining us. Towards the end of the last semester here on the lineup, we started kind of fiddling with the format of the show. Ultimately, we found this segment, which we call Green Light, where we overreact to the last week of the season. Since we haven't been on the air in 5 months, we have a lot of catching up to do.
With a total payroll of about $200 million, it has well been worth it for the Dodgers. They currently sit at 79-67, 1.5 games back in the division and 2 games out of the wild card.
The Washington Nationals came into the year the favorite to win the NL East and were even some experts picked to win the World Series. They will end the year wishing Dusty Baker was still their manager. Just give it a moment to let that sink in.
Heading into the season, Brewers fans were concerned about getting the large number of quality players on the team and equal playing time. Management expertly solved this issue by adding Curtis Granderson and Mike Moustakas.
After over a decade of being top dog in the Central, the Cardinals finally know what it feels like to be the little brother in their own division. How did Tommy Pham's self-proposed MVP season work out?
We were going to really swing for the fences with a joke about the Reds here, but Jim Riggleman told us to bunt instead.
Chicago White Sox 2020 World Series champions.
Seattle Mariners 2020 postseason participants.
The Toronto Blue Jays finally let go of the pipe dream that something could happen with his current roster and traded Josh Donaldson for a single player to be named later. This is exactly what you want to see out of your favorite team. The best player traded away for nothing after the team had better offers the entire season.
The Baltimore Orioles are 41-104, have a barren farm system, and haven't won a World Series in 35 years. The good news is they still have 73 years to go before it becomes as sad as the Cubs were.
The Boston Red Sox are on pace for over 105 wins, which is impressive. It would be more impressive if they didn't play in the same division as the Orioles.
The Arizona Diamondbacks traded Dansby Swanson and Ender Inciarte for 138 innings of Shelby Miller, which is still a better deal than the Cubs signing of Yu Darvish.
That wasn't even this year. The Atlanta Braves are in the midst of their best season in 5 years. It's a shame half the fan base stopped paying attention when Chipper Jones retired.
The Cubs' most popular player is famous for tagging.
The Braves' most popular player isn't famous.
It took the Cubs over a century to win a World Series.
At least the Cubs have won a World Series this century, and the Atlanta Braves mascot is just a beige Philly fanatic.
Do the Cubs even have a mascot?
Yes, his name is Clark, and he is quite average, just like the Atlanta Braves.
Joe Madden isn't all he's cracked up to be.
I entirely agree with that one.
You do?
Yes, I really do.
Oh. Chris Bryant isn't even that attractive.
How do you even say that? I mean, look empirically, you see him smile. He's at least attractive as Dansby Swanson. Can you just cut the mics?
Barely.
Can you cut him? Just what is happening? What is happening with you?
I'll tell you what is happening.
Why do you do this?
You definitely
Every time
need
you
to
do this,
respect me more.
Stay out of it, Brandon. You are done. You are done on this show, mister. Stop it.
I brought
Stop
the
it.
personality.
Stop it.
I brought it.
Okay. Hold on. So Jeff, are you much of a gamer?
No.
Well, I was going to talk about how Fortnite has actually made its own name in baseball this year as
I have noticed.
Yeah, David Price had to quit playing Fortnite because people believed it was contributing to his wrist injury. And Will Myers was caught on a Twitch stream of a teammate's Fortnite bagging on his coach. So Fortnite permeates all life.
Not the smartest ideas.
No, it's not. It's really not. We've reached the end of our time for the show today. I would like to say thank you to each member of our crew today. Joe Palmer as technical director, Matt Dennis on audio, Taylor Moore on teleprompter, Brandon Crosselin as floor manager, and Kenny Adams as our graphic designer. For Jeff Matthews, I'm Joshua Adams. Tune in next week as we take a deeper dive into what banning the shift would really mean to the game of baseball. Thank you for watching The Lineup.